Chuck Berry's greatest hits. If you were someone who played the electric guitar and they told you the key and asked you to do a Chuck Berry, you would almost certainly know exactly what I was asking you to do. The Chuck Berry is an oscillating change between the 5th note on the scale and the 6th note on the scale. Sort of like this. Once we were doing a Chuck Berry to a 3-chord 12-bar progression, at some point one of us would start playing partial chords, double stops and flurries of the 5 notes that would always work with those 3 chords. And it might go like this. And when we do it again, it would be the intro. And guitarists have been doing that since the start of rock and roll. It is the thing the Motown-loving Beatles and the Chicago blues-loving Rolling Stones had in common. Not just the Beatles and the Stones, but Elvis, the Beach Boys, ELO, the Faces and many more. Chuck Berry was a massive inspiration for acts like Status Quo and Dr. Feelgood, and the pub rock bands. Guitarists of my generation would always play Johnny B. Good, and yet we may have been metal, prog, punks, mods or power pop. The really clever ones would also do Chuck Berry's famous duck walk. Berry was very much a showman, and his last hit was the innuendo-led comedy song My Ding-a-Ling. Chuck Berry wrote so many popular songs: Rock and Roll Music, Roll Over Beethoven, Sweet Little 16, Maybelline and Promised Land, to name but a few. There was a time when bands of all styles would encore with a rock and roll medley, usually with many Chuck Berry songs included. He was not a white teenager, but he wrote witty lyrics for the Happy Days American Graffiti generation. The frustrated boy with no particular place to go parks the car and recalls, "Can you imagine the way I felt? I couldn't unfasten my safety belt." There is the sad tale of the man trying to get through to a number in Memphis, Tennessee to speak to his 3-year-old daughter. You can picture the teenage wedding in You Never Can Tell, even as your memory drifts towards the scene in Pulp Fiction, but c'est la vie, say the old folks. If you want to play electric guitar and you want to start at the very beginning, listen to some Chuck Berry and learn some Chuck Berry. And you can go to any jam night in any town and guitarists of all ages will let you play the famous riff and give you the nod to attempt the solo, which a beginner could have a go at, but was also not beneath even Hendrix. You might be tempted to turn up the distortion, but Chuck Berry played the guitar like the ringing of bells. The best of Chuck Berry.